Hi, I'm Marco from Hellforge Studio, and today we're going to talk about Cruel Force's new album, Haneda. I was in charge of production, recording, and mixing. Mastering was done by Patrick Engel, and well, we did quite a few things in a very special way and in a more sometimes traditional, sometimes more creative way than I usually do and than the band usually do. I think it really brought the album to life, and there are certain things that I want to show in this video to actually emphasize on what the production process was like and what we did to make the album something special. To start things off, let's have a listen to the chorus and see what the song is like. This one's Warlords. Okay, so let's start off with the drums. There are quite a few things that we did differently this time around. We recorded the drums not at my studio, but at the Great Bauer Studios, and with a really big live room and lots of reverb and ambience, which we actually ended up using, at least not that much, but we'll come to that later. And simultaneously, we also changed a few things about my usual recording process, and I want to pick some things off and show them off to emphasize what we did differently. So first thing is about the kick drum. We built like a small tent, like a tunnel, to emphasize the low end, to get some more oomph, and also to just try it out and do some things that you can see in old documentaries from the 80s and the 90s, where people built these weird things around the drums to get like an echo chamber or more low end and stuff like this. And we also did that, and then put a subkick in there. I usually don't use subkicks because I think they don't really sound good. They don't really have the great low end that they are supposed to have, and at the same time, they don't bring anything special to the table that I would like to hear. But this time around, I actually noticed some things that were really nice. As you can see, the volume and the dynamics are quite all over the place with the subkick. That's because we had like a really big distance to it, and also it was really sensitive to how the low end developed in the room. And at the same time, I didn't really want to use it for low end. So let me show you what the subkick sounds without processing. As you can tell, there's a lot of bleeding. You have lots of cymbals, especially the snare is also really loud. And you almost think you can't use it and it sounds like garbage. But I really liked what it did to the low mids on the kick, and you will see what I mean when you hear the processing on it. And also one thing to emphasize, with a unstable microphone signal like this, that is like really all over the place, it's very important to get the gating right, and therefore I use trigger as always. No triggering in there, no signal sensor whatsoever, mix on 0%, it's just there for the gate. Then let's listen to the fully processed subkick. And what you notice right away is the nice smack, the nice neck to it. You have like a weird signal almost triggering the gate, and it sounds really nice, really old school and smooth, soft, but also tacky at the same time. You usually don't get that with any microphone, because you usually have like a very broad frequency spectrum. But with the subkick, you have this very narrow and mid-focused sound. And once you distort it and compress it, clip it a little bit, you actually get this nice, really tough kicking sound, which you would normally feel like you would have to have a real microphone inside the kick. But then you would get a very sharp sound. Also, we can compare it to the kick sound we have. Unprocessed first, and then I'll put on the processing. You can actually hear it. They are very close together in sound. But then again, the kick in is way more tacky, way more aggressive, has way more click and attack to it. And the subkick is way smoother and sounds more mellow and more realistic, if you will. So then moving on to the snare, we also have a few things going on with the snare, but the most interesting thing I think is that we actually mixed in a gunshot sound with the snare. So let's listen to the snare. And if you know, you can tell right away that there is like something like an explosion or a gunshot or like heavy reverb in there. And there is heavy reverb, but also I think the gunshot really emphasizes the sound. Let's show you the full drum mix, and I toggle the gunshot on and off. It's kind of subtle, and at the same time it's not. It brings a lot of reverb, or no, let's not say reverb, it brings a lot of sustain to the sound. I want to show you something interesting, because the gunshot with no processing actually is quite short. And we did that in trigger. You see, let me see which one I used. I used the second gunshot here. I actually reduced the sustain. That's a real gunshot sound. But of course, this will muddy up the mix and it would not work. So I shortened the sustain to only 200 milliseconds, and then it's really, really short. And then through the processing, like a very heavy limiting and compression, and also drastic EQ, you get some of the sustain back, but also you get this really heavy room sound. And if you mix it together with the rest of the snare, it actually fills up the sustain way more than the explosive attack sound. Which I personally really, really like. And also, if you listen to it in the mix, I think we also automated it to be louder in certain parts. Yeah, of course, especially in the chorus. Awesome. I actually teased it in the beginning. We recorded it in a very, very big room, and we had 2 room mics like upstairs. It was the biggest room you can imagine, and then there was like a row of seats in the upper corner of a room, and you had like this crazy view across the full recording room, as if it was like a concert hall or a sports hall or something like that. And we put the microphones up there and made the biggest stereo image we could get, but actually we were surprised by how small it actually sounded. And I want to show you first without any automation, and yeah, just for yourself. well, I myself imagined it to be bigger and sounded more massive, but it didn't. So we actually felt like we would more likely use a digital reverb and make our own reverb sound, our own room sound for the record, and which is what we did. And I still thought during mixing we need to use this rooms in some ways, because it actually sounds very big, but very controlled at the same time. And therefore, I actually like the sound. Let's put on automation back and actually put the volume where it was. So most of the time, as you can see, the volume is at 0. It's not in there, there's nothing in there, and you can't hear the room at all. But then during the chorus and certain parts, and for some special effects automation, we will get the full room sound, or even a little bit bigger than that. So let's see. Let's listen to the full drum sound, and you will hear when the room sound comes in. Yeah, at first you think it's very subtle, but then once you take away the reverb, it's completely dry. Especially on the low and especially on the kick, you get this like very long sustained kick sound, but it's still controlled, and that's what I really like about these room mics. You don't have the boomy kick, and it's not overbearing in the mix, and actually gives some very good depth, some very nice live feeling to the whole thing. And in addition to the digital reverb that they used, and we also automated for the bigger chorus, it feels really natural to have different room sounds, and that's something I really like in mixes, where you can actually experiment for each part and part to part, make something different, something a little bit more interesting, and therefore you get this like really big impression with the actual real big room. And speaking of the big room, as you could already tell, there's this like really big reverb in the chorus, and I think that's due to the snare reverb sound. Yeah, there's the extra long verb, which is, I think, only fed by the snare track. And in this song, it's only on the chorus and the intro riff, so the very slow one we listened to before. So let's listen without the long reverb, so you can actually hear what we did during automation. Really fills out the space that we have in the mix, and also not only in the mix but also in the arrangement and the song part. There's so much air that needs to be like used up by something, and I think the reverb tail is really great. And we did this on several occasions during the album. I will get back and show you 2 more parts where we had like a very big reverb and actually did something special to the drums to make them sound different, to make the part more special. And yeah, okay, so now we're in the song Black Talon, and there's a solo break right at the end of the song with a really breakdown of tempo and very slow drums, very slow bass, very slow rhythm guitars, and this very epic solo on top of it. We actually put on one of the biggest reverbs we have on the album, and yeah, listen for yourself. As you can tell, it's really, really big, really aggressive. There's some distortion on there, some bit crushing even, and the full drum set is in there. Lots of overheads, lots of kick, lots of snare, and especially the toms really breathe in this long reverb sound. And just as it was in the Warlords track, at first it seems quite subtle, but if you take it away, then it suddenly feels like the whole space, the whole room is empty. And you really need this reverb. You really want it to happen underneath all the dense material to fill up the space and to give the sense of epic solo stuff, just like in the 80s. All right, and then we have another one, Soul of Iron this time around, and both solos have also a kind of epic and glorious feeling to them. So we actually wanted to have this, that the full mix is supporting this. And again, we reached out for the long verb, and I think this one is the biggest reverb that we've built on the full album. And you can tell in the mix, I'll start off without the long reverb, and then put it back in, and then go back into the full mix. And I especially like this the reverb in this part, because you can actually tell there's lots of reverb on the full kit, not only on the snare, not only on the toms, and you don't have these explosive bursts when they're played. You also have that on the full kit with the cymbals and also the kick drum, and you get this really round and full feeling. The drums also sit back in the mix a little bit and gets drowned out almost. But I really, really like that. They are not the star of the show. It's a very basic rhythm, and even the fills that are played are very basic and rhythmic or rhythm-oriented. And therefore, it's very easy for the drums to sit back, but also have this really big, smooth feeling in the background and give the full section a more glorious, more epic feeling to it, and underline the full feeling of the solo. For now, I want to talk about the bass. Usually with heavy music or heavy metal in general, the bass plays a more background role and more backbone of the band role, with exceptions, of course. But with Cruel Force especially, the bass is very, very basic and very in the background and gives a groove and some nice accents and this big and dirty feel to the overall mix. But still, we have like a few things on the album which are a little bit special. And starting with the intro of the full album, as I told you, we recorded the drums in a very, very big room. We also reamped the guitars and the bass in this big room. And for the bass, we actually never used the room mics on the album except for the intro. And I want to show you how they sound. So let's listen to the bass. It's very basic, but still you get this really wide stereo field, this really immense power in the low end, without it overpowering the mix. Yeah, let's listen to the mix as well. In the full mix, it's subtle, but especially if you listen with headphones, you can really tell how the bass is at first quite narrow, even though there is chorus on it. And then when you add the room mics, it gets really, really wide in the stereo field. But not like very loud and overpowering, and that, which is something very good, because if you go too stereo on bass material, it will start to actually collapse the stereo field. In the full mix, it would sound narrow, because everything is huge and wide, then nothing is huge and wide. So bass actually needs to be mono. And there's also another reason for, and well, most of you will know that you always go mono with the low end to make sure the mix is clean. The physics behind that is we as humans, we actually are not capable of really telling the difference between mono low end and stereo low end, and also can't really tell where a low end source is coming from in the stereo field. So it's not only not beneficial for the mix to have this really wide space, it's also not beneficial to our ears. No, there's nothing that makes us go like, oh, whoa, this sounds way better. Why doesn't everybody do it? Therefore, it's like, if you do it, you need to have the focus not only on the low end, but also on the full range of the instrument, and then you get the full effect of the stereo effect. This one for the bass is a fast one, a short one. As you already heard, the bass was recorded with quite a bit of distortion to smoothen things out, to make it a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more sitting a bit better in the mix with the guitars and balancing the aggression between both instruments. But in Savage Gods, there is this very like neoclassical inspired intro lick on the guitars, and in the studio we decided we want to double up on that on the bass as well, to have this this neoclassical feeling and emphasize that. And therefore we actually recorded the bass rig without the distortion pedal in front, and have this very clean bass. And in addition to lots of automation, of course, we get a much more distinct bass tone here, and it cuts through the mix and has this nice, really warm feeling, and also more traditional sound than the distorted sound. So I'll show you at first in the mix and then in solo. Yeah, and you could also notice how we have, once it gets back into the normal riff, the highly distorted rhythm sound, which is the usual sound for the rest of the album. Okay, we are back to the Warlords track, because we talked about the chorus and this very big drums and the how we made this section work in context of the full song. And the drums are not the only special thing about this part, about this section. We actually added a parallel guitar track, like a third and fourth track, to actually have this very thick, very wide wall of sound, the traditional quad-tracked guitar rhythm sound. And for me personally, it wasn't enough just to double track it. We actually did it with DI tracks, and then put on an emulation to have a different guitar sound and make it sound more aggressive, and give the palm mutes more of this, well, in a way, kind of modern sound, but at the same time, highly aggressive sound, which you would associate with the later stage Metallica, like the late 80s Metallica sounds, suggesting this very heavy palm muted riffing. And let me show you the intro riff, the chorus riff with the sound, and then I'll toggle it off and on again. It's really not subtle. It's very aggressive and very straightforward, and makes the guitars, well, more aggressive, more straightforward, and also emphasizes the palm mutes. They get really upfront. They get really at this steel type of sound, as if you were digging in way heavier than you were actually supposed to. And you would maybe be surprised what kind of sound we actually used. I will show you the sound in solo in a second. And let me tell you, it is a 5150 emulation, something that is associated with a very modern sound and most of the time too high gain, too aggressive, and also too clean for old school metal. But I think it fits this stuff really, really well, and is a great like a parallel EQ kind of thing. And also notice how the power chords are getting really emphasized. They have this very upfront, very pronounced feeling. And then there's something else actually in this song about the guitars. This time around, it's not about like a third and fourth track, like a double tracking thing. This time it's a parallel processing thing. Very, very similar, but completely different. So let me show you guitar sound at first. How it's sounding normally in the verse riff, and then I'll show you I call it the Metallica break, because for me it's like a really classic Metallica riff, like from the first two albums, and has this aggressive palm muting sound and very simple riffing style. So as you could tell, the second riff is way more compressed, more upfront, more aggressive, and also has this pumping feeling. It's like it's jumping up and down, jumping out of the speaker, and rhythmically playing with the drums and the bass, and gets really energetic. And well, it does this on its own already, but if you overemphasize it, it gets larger than life and more interesting and more emphasized. Let's have a look what I did here. I'll show you the parallel processing, and you can tell what it's doing in the mix. Yeah, we have really drastic EQ, like making it very scooped, very aggressive and overly bass and high frequency heavy, and then compressing it with a rather slow compressor to get the pumping feeling. You can actually hear how the compressor sets in at the very first note. Of course, in the full mix, that's automated and you can't hear how the compressor is kicking in. But let's have a listen in the full section, and I'll toggle the compression on and off. Okay, so for the guitars, there are a few more things that I want to show you, and this one is in Titan's Awakening. And some of you may have noticed while listening to the album that this song is actually in a different tuning. It's in drop D, and therefore has a kind of different guitar sound. Even though we recorded the same guitar sound, tuning drastically changes the sound of it. And therefore, I adjusted the mix, of course, to make it sound similar or even with the rest of the tracks of the album. And then we noticed that it kind of lacks low end, which is kind of paradox, because you tune down to get more low end and make stuff heavier and make them sound like bigger and more impressive. And I think it actually worked out really, really well. So let me show you what we did here. First of all, there's a whole break which have this really heavy palm muting, and I will show you what the sound is like. And there are two things we did. First of all, we quad tracked the heavy palm muted part, as you can tell. There's usually a double track, and then we have only this part quad tracked. Therefore, you have this massive wall of sound, as we had also already with Warlords before. But also, we did something else, but I'll show you in a second. And if you compare these two parts, you can tell one is very busy and doesn't need the low end, so it sounds good when it's kind of thin and less heavy on the low end. And then you have the other part with the heavy permuting, and the permutes really jump out of the speaker. And of course, that's not an accident, that's on purpose, and I'll show you what we did. We actually automated the EQ with a dynamic EQ. So only during the permutes, the dynamic EQ is active, or almost only during that, but only during the part of the heavy permuting, this EQ is active. As you can tell, therefore the permute really jumped out of the speaker. I also think I've automated each and every single permute, especially on the downbeat, to have more low ends, to be even more emphasized, and therefore have this really heavy impact. And you get the feeling that, again, the guitarist is playing more heavy and heavier, even heavier than he's already playing throughout the whole song. Okay, and this is another quick one. Going back to the title track of Haneda, we actually have this small break in here, and we use an HM2 pedal to make the break even heavier and more aggressive. It's not the usual very overly Swedish death metal HM2 sound, but it's very fuzzy and very highly distorted. I'll show you on its own. And then I'll show you the part and toggle it off and on again. Yeah, and it's in the mix, it's kind of subtle, of course, because we don't want to sound like Swedish death metal all of a sudden in this part, but we also want this really overbearing sound, this like the speakers are bursting with guitar sound. And to emphasize the whole thing, in the first place, we already had heavy synth bass sounds underneath, which have already a really fuzzy sound, a really extreme and a swirling sound, and also putting heavy load onto the speakers. Together, they sound really massive. Yeah, and as you can tell, we also distorted the synthesizers as well. So then we're back to the normal song, normal sound, and everything can breathe again. Let's talk about lead guitars. Cruel Force has like some songs with very many lead guitars and some songs with almost no lead guitar at all. But one thing that is consistent across the full album is every solo, every lead guitar has its own purpose, its own sound, and differs from song to song. And I picked out two parts where I actually think we have quite a unique solo sound and actually do something different that or not different, but something that you don't hear all the time, especially in classic heavy metal. And the first one is the second solo in Warlords, where we have like the classic Eventide H3000 unit as a plugin, of course, and add heavy pitch shifting and chorus sound to the full solo. So it actually sounds more stereo and more out of the speakers. Let's have a listen, and I'll toggle it off and on again. What I really like about the chorus is that each note gets a little bit surprising when he plays higher notes. the pick attack gets a little bit more emphasized, and the note starts to shine, to sparkle like a little star through the mix, and everything sounds a little bit more individual, a little bit more accentuated, and without taking away from a solo, without it feeling like it has this massive effect on it. It's kind of subtle, or even very subtle, I think, and therefore it's even better as if we had like a solo double or a real chorus or a phaser or stuff like this. So at the same time, it's subtle, but not subtle at all. And then the other part is also here in Warlords, and it's in the intro. And we have this kind of effect quite a few times on the album, I think 3 or 4 times in the full album, where we have the normal solo sound, but we actually dial back the volume quality until you actually reach the point where you have almost no sound coming out of the guitar at all. Therefore, you get this really almost badly played feeling, but at the same time, he's playing good and accentuated, and it sounds really, really well played, but you have this very broken and fragile guitar sound, which I think, especially in the outro to Warlords, gives the full song a different meaning, a different kind of vibe, and underlines the whole structure of the song. Since it's very long, with over 6 minutes, it also helps the listener get out of this epic kind of feeling of the song, this whole journey throughout the song. So with the next song, actually, you could, start over again. And in solo, and that's like a very nice way to make something more interesting and make something sound completely different, even though you've not changed anything at all. Finally, talking about the vocals, sometimes vocals are really a very special thing to me, sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're in between. And actually, with Cruel Force, you kind of switch from song to song, and the vocals have a different purpose from song to song. Sometimes the vocals are just there, so you actually have vocals. Sometimes they do a complete instrumental, and sometimes the vocals are really at the center and have a very important role for the full song, for the full meaning of the song, and also a different meaning in the mix. And I always try to get it and to underline what is there. And for what I want to show you about the vocals on Haneda is something where you could do two totally different things and still do the right thing for vocals. So I'll show you in a minute. There are, with production, when recording, certain tools and styles of recording and producing, and always trying to underline the song and the structure of the song, the arrangement. And there are 2 songs, especially on the album, which I want to talk about, where I approached something very, very similar in 2 completely different ways. And let's start with Black Talon, which is a very simple song. Nothing special happens in here structure-wise, because it's very simple. The intro, verse, chorus, there's a big solo section, another chorus, and then the outro. It's very straightforward songwriting, and there are not many special things, neither for the instruments nor for the vocals. And therefore, I actually wanted to underline that, not make the song boring by that, but actually underline the structure and make things more interesting. So if we look at it, we have always this verse-hyperverse construct. If we compare verse-hyperverse 1 to verse-hyperverse 2, you will notice that I did completely different things in the vocal overdubs, in the structure of recording, and I will show you both verses, and then you can decide why I did that, and then I will tell you. As you can tell, the hyperverse kind of thing is almost like a pre-chorus thingy, and the verse itself is kind of unique. At the same time, it's not, because the rhythm of the vocal is completely the same for both verses, but the automation of effects, the usage of effects, and the overdubs and production level of ad-libs and doubles is completely different. And that is actually to break up the pattern, to break up the monotony of the very simple song structure. At the same time, you hold up the song structure by having the hyperverse or pre-chorus or whatever you want to call it be exactly the same. Making use of this sameness to remember, or to have the listener remember, this is the part that I know, and in between you have these kind of interesting and creative bits. Let me load up the other track. The other song is Savage Gods. This song is not very easy in structure, it's more complicated and more sophisticated, and you actually have one part leading into the other, and there's happening quite a lot of few things throughout the vocals, throughout the guitars, and there's lead guitars, and therefore this song actually does not need like a very fancy production. But at the same time, I did like the same thing, exactly the same thing, different feeling of the song. And we have the verses, which are the same in rhythm and different in production. And then we have the pre-chorus and chorus, exactly the same, everything's the same. But here it serves another purpose. So let me show you one run through from verse to chorus. I think you will get it yourself, but I will explain.
Forward to battle we march, praying for death by the blade. Savage the gods that we praise, searing the brand of their flame. Golden domes and silver arches, storming the walls as we land. Pillars of stone fall before us, cannot defy our stand.
There's a lot of stuff going on. We have this like a melody part in between the verse and the pre-chorus, and then we have the big eruption of the thunderclap in the chorus and the gang shouts. And as you can tell, there's already going on a lot. And if we were to individualize pre-chorus and chorus and make stuff more interesting or seemingly more interesting by doing different things and experimenting with effects or with production, we would actually make stuff less interesting, because the listener would not be able to follow all the stuff that's happening anyways, and will be like overwhelmed by all the tiny little creative things that we would have added if we weren't aware of not overloading the listener. So we use the parts where we can do some interesting stuff in the verse, be a little bit more creative and change the production up and stuff. And then when we come back to the melody, the pre-chorus and the chorus, it's one big part, which is always the same, helps the listener to actually know the song, get to know the song, and remember each and every part, and get the feeling that this is something familiar, something that he can actually sing along to. I think this album was really, really great in having memorable choruses and actually make you remember the lyrics and the words, so you could sing along. And with the production, we want to underline that and help the listener to remember stuff, and only be creative in the parts where there is room and where there is air for experimentation. Yeah, that's it. This was Cruel Force's new album, Haneda, and a walkthrough of the production of everything. Kind of special, a little bit different what we did here, a little bit on the history of the recording, like going to the big studio, changing things up with the drums, changing things up for mixing when coming to the guitars and to the bass, doing a few unorthodox things and actually elevate the production by that. And then also analyzing the vocals and how the vocals actually support the song structure and how they, intertwine with each other. So the whole thing comes to life. And I think that if you read the reviews about Cruel Force, not only this album, but also the last album, you will notice that everybody is kind of saying that they are doing concept albums. I personally think they don't, and I think if you ask them, they will deny it as well. And I think there is not like clear evidence for it being a concept album. But if you listen to the full album and how every song is connected to each other and how the mixing and the production is also like painting a complete picture and connecting everything, then you will get the feeling of a concept album. And with the art around it, like the album cover and also the layout on the CD and the vinyl, you will get the vibe as if it was a concept album, as if everything is planned out and building upon each other, and each and every individual song is, well, individual for itself, and you could listen to the singles as well, but also working as a full picture, full album. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.